Political language is designed to make lies sound truthful, murder sound respectable, and to give the appearance of solidity to pure wind. That quote comes from George Orwell. Welcome to Surviving the Matrix, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Maxwell Igan. It's a pleasure to be with you once again, and I will be your host for the next hour. So I'm still here breathing the chemically enhanced air of beautiful Byron Bay in Australia, folks. It's just seems incessant, this chemtrail spraying. Maybe it's just me, but I feel that everything seems to have escalated lately. The amount of electromagnetic interference in the atmosphere even seems to have risen lately. Perhaps it's due to the hole in the magnetosphere, or I suppose one could question whether it is perhaps being caused by the HARP facility, and does the noticeably escalating amount of chemtrails perhaps also have something to do with it. The chemtrails here really have been intense, folks, and reports are coming in from all over the world of an escalation in these things. But whatever it's causing it, perhaps it's even a solar anomaly, but whatever's causing it, the electromagnetic levels seem to really be off the charts lately. It's as if we are being bombarded from all sides. Of course, speaking of electromagnetism, one really must love the new addition to modern airport security that has now been adopted for us in the form of full body scanners. Of course, by simply applying the correct setting to the scanner, a person does appear fully naked to anyone viewing the device, and being that it is an internal scanning device, it also has the very obvious effect of exposing the body to some quite harmful X-rays and radiation. Both of these things are naturally very comforting thoughts, and knowing that all of this is being done in order to keep you safe from the evil terrorists should of course provide you with some solace as you expose yourself to the man behind the counter and fly home to nurse your tumour. I don't know, folks, have we become gerbils, ladies and gentlemen? Do people actually buy into all this rubbish the government presents the public with under the guise of safety and freedom? I don't know, perhaps the bulk of society truly has become that disconnected from reality that they actually buy into it. And this may well be the case, folks. I tell you, I never watch TV at all. I don't even own one. But the other day I was looking online for a news story that I'd heard about, and I happened to find the story I was looking for on Sky News, but I was forced to watch 2 or 3 other articles before it actually got to the one I wanted to see. And well, frankly, folks, just watching these news presenters and listening to their delivery, I was shocked. I was literally shocked. I mean, these people on the screen, these newsreaders, it was as if they were addressing an audience of 7-year-olds. I'm not kidding, folks. It was so plastic, so blandly condescending, so utterly fake, and so utterly devoid of intelligence that I was literally taken aback. I thought, oh my God, is that how dumbed down society has actually become since I last watched TV? That these news reporters can talk to people like this, and they have to talk to people like this? Or was it simply that bad all the time and I just never noticed it back then? I don't know, but it was amazing, and I was truly shocked by it, folks. And from here, I suppose we may as well go from the blandly moronic to the completely ridiculous. And folks, of course, I'm talking about Obamacare. Obamacare is absolutely ridiculous. It is utterly ridiculous and completely stupid. It can serve no good at all. In fact, even the thought of making people pay for health care is ridiculous. And what is perhaps even more ridiculous is the concept of imposing fines upon people who don't pay health insurance. I mean, even just on the surface of it, folks. Well, what if you don't get sick? I don't get sick. I haven't been to a doctor in over 20 years, so what on earth do I need to pay health insurance for? Besides, isn't the government supposed to be the elected servants of the people? I mean, maybe I'm missing something here, but doesn't the president have to swear an oath to serve the American people and to uphold the United States Constitution in order to actually take up the office? isn't the president actually supposed to uphold that oath? And isn't America actually supposed to have one of the best lifestyles in the world? Well, if such is really the case, if the lifestyle and freedom that exists in America is truly the greatest in the world, then why doesn't the office of president actually do something to help matters and provide free health care for all Americans? I mean, we have free health care here in Australia. Some of the doctors may leave a little to be desired, but hey, at least a system is in place. And frankly, the uneducated pseudo-doctors who simply run their patients' symptoms through a computer program and then prescribe whatever treatment their computer tells them that have been put in place in our modern medical facilities are more the fault of the academic institutions and corrupt governments than anything else anyway. Have you noticed that, folks? Have you noticed that if you go to a modern doctor these days, they don't actually check you out anymore? These modern doctors, they just type your symptoms into a medical program on their computer, and then they simply do and prescribe whatever the program says. So you have to wonder, I mean, is this the result of 7 years of medical study at university? Where is the medical skill in that? I mean, is that how they operate as well? Do they run a surgical application and simply cut where the dotted line on the 3D model tells them to cut? I imagine we could all be doctors in the modern world if we like, folks. All we really need to do is get a copy of the medical program they use and keep it updated. Sounds easy enough. But back to healthcare. I mean, let's look at it realistically. Now, surely, folks, if the office of president can afford to spend millions and millions of dollars a day on maintaining 2 illegal wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, if the office of president can afford to give out billions of dollars in bailouts to banks, the very banks which of course helped cause the current economic collapse, most of which then proceeded to give the bailout money to their respective CEOs in bonuses, I might add. If the office of president can afford to spend millions of dollars on full body scanners, homeland security checkpoints, cameras in the streets, cameras in the stations, cameras in the schools, paying police to beat up school children, arrest 12-year-olds who happen to doodle on their desks, and in training girl guides and school kids to spy on their parents and report the neighbour to the climate Gestapo if they leave a light on. If the office of president can afford to spend God knows how many millions of dollars on the constant and dramatically escalating amount of aerial spraying that is going on in the skies every day, then surely, folks, surely the office of president can arrange a free and a workable health plan for the people of the nation he is apparently serving. Though, of course, that's probably something that would actually help things and be based in humanitarian reasoning, so it's probably out of the question. I mean, providing a free, comprehensive healthcare system staffed by competent and caring doctors, well, as the late George Carlin might have said, that's something Christ might do. Or in this case, folks, it's perhaps something a caring, yes we can leader who wanted to bring about positive change for his people might do. And well, unfortunately, the reality is that the real question in this matter is how on earth can Big Pharma, the fake economy, and the criminal banking cartels who stir the whole pot possibly reap any profit from something like that? And this is the world we live in, folks. I mean, seriously, I simply cannot imagine what makes it even remotely possible for people not to see through the theatre of these sociopathic institutions and corporate puppet shows we euphemistically refer to as governments. I don't know. Would you really like to introduce some care, Mr. Obama? Well, perhaps you could try entering into the real world and maybe acting like a human being rather than a corporate puppet. You may find that an action like that would have remarkable results. So I don't know, folks, but at a glance I would say things seem to most definitely be escalating. The encroaching New World Order now seems to be moving into sprint mode, airport scanners, health bills, massive increase in chemical spraying, and with the vast amounts of people now waking up to what's actually going on in the world, I would not be surprised if the powers that be stage another false flag terror attack sometime this year. All the signs are there, as are all the signs of an imminent financial collapse as well. And folks, I'm not saying any of this to induce fear. I simply believe that it is prudent to be aware of such things. Hopefully the many of you out there who listen to this radio program have by now already got organic food gardens growing and have set up some kind of local network of friends who can all support each other if and when it all goes pear-shaped. The most important part of all, through all of these changes though, folks, is to not go into a state of fear. Understand that change is inevitable. The trick is how to deal with it and to be aware of what type of future we are collectively shaping. As I've often said, all of these unfolding events really do present us with a truly wonderful opportunity to cast aside our chains of division and to truly achieve our potential as human beings. Personally, folks, I feel that it is extremely important that we deal with this ridiculously corrupt monetary system. That is the first step. I mean, this system, it really is utterly ridiculous, and it truly is utterly corrupt. It is the head of the snake. It truly is the head of the snake, and I honestly believe that we need to deal with it before it crashes totally, and in crashing reduces everyone to paupers. It is very obvious that if we remain with the system we currently have and let the system simply run its natural course until it collapses under its own weight of insoluble debt, then an inevitable effect of such a crash will be the transfer of all wealth into the hands of the cartel of banksters who have puppeteered this whole situation. It'll just transfer everything into the hands of those who issue the money. And it's important that we don't allow that to simply happen by matter of course, folks. Attempting to address that issue and avoid such a thing occurring is actually why I had Mike Montagna as a guest on the show last week, folks. And I really do urge everyone to visit his websites, perfecteconomy.com and perfecteconomy.org, and research the economic model that Mike is presenting. Because this is the type of system that we need. We need to have this type of system in place. I mean, look, personally, I think that with a truly awakened humanity, we won't need money at all. We won't need any type of monetary system. But that may take a generation or two to accomplish. That's, of course, if we actually last that long, folks. But in the meantime, however, the mathematically perfected economy that's been presented to us by Mike Montagna is certainly preferable to what we currently have, which is simply a thinly disguised system of debt slavery. Bear in mind also when visiting Mike's sites that he is still in the process of creating the applications that will be used in the Global People's Initiative that is being undertaken, which will hopefully force our governments to convert to his economic model. So give him a few weeks to finish these applications and finish coding this software and to get things up and running. And be sure to check back with him. When he has completed it all and the site is fully functional and the software has been created, I do intend to have him back on the show to give us all an update. Also, and I'm not sure how this will sit with international audiences, but due to popular request, I will also soon be dedicating a show to helping people understand the Australian legal system and constitution. I appreciate that such a show may be a little irrelevant to American listeners and to other international listeners, but due to recent actions by Australian state governments, due to the lack of understanding many Australian citizens have for their constitution and for the rights the document actually grants them, none of which have ever been removed, by the way, and indeed none of which ever can be removed without the full consent of the Australian people. And as I said, also due to popular request, I feel that I have an obligation to my countrymen to help them better understand these issues and the power that is granted to them via our Constitution.
Or maybe I should simply create a 30-minute YouTube film to deal with this situation. That might be a better idea, wouldn't it, folks? You think I should do that? I think that would be better, rather than dedicating a whole radio show to it. So, okay, so I will make a YouTube clip to deal with that situation, so you can ignore everything that I just said about that show that I may be bringing you. I'll just make a YouTube clip instead, so that will be something that the patrons of the Crow House YouTube channel can look forward to, the people who visit the AOD Scarecrow YouTube channel. And I'll get that up there as soon as possible for you. The states really have been behaving very badly in my country, folks, and it's high time these matters were addressed. Australians really can be incredibly staunch people, folks, and will fight tooth and nail for the right cause once their blood is up. But unfortunately, until they are informed that a situation exists, and thus aroused into action, they can also be some of the most apathetic. I am, however, confident that they can be roused into action, though, folks, and again, it's not violent action we need, but rather an awareness of the power that people actually have to simply stop complying with this corrupt system and to institute change. So that's about it for the political part of the show for this week anyway, folks, because there are a few other things I would very much like to talk to you about as well. But I touch on these political issues just to offer you a perspective. I also touch on the monetary system quite often because I believe freeing ourselves of this stress and fear that this system creates would be very helpful for the human race in dealing with the many issues we face. I believe that people can address these issues more from a state of heart if they are not kept in a state of constant stress due to financial worries that are brought about purely by this corrupt monetary system. So what are the issues that we face? Well, when we look at the world, folks, it's easy to see that the world is changing. And it's not just changing politically and economically. I mean, sure, we need to be aware of the political and economic situation, simply because people need to be able to see it for the farce that it is. But as I said, these are not the only changes that we are seeing. There are signs and signals of change everywhere, both on the earth and in the heavens. Changes in our sun that are affecting our solar system, and possibly even changes from an external source that is affecting our sun or our solar system as well. Changes to our earth and to all life that exists here, even what many may perceive as ancient prophecies being fulfilled. There is no doubt that we are right now at this point in history at a time of immense change. Change is indeed coming, my friends. It's inevitable. And such changes as we would desire, changes for the better, can really only be brought about by an awake and an aware population. Personally, I think an awake and aware population is what is needed more than anything at this particular time in history. And folks, the reason I feel this way is because I believe that this time of change that we are in right now, this time brings with it a huge opportunity for the human consciousness to escape the matrix that we know as reality. I also believe that the reality that will be created, that will be made manifest through this period of change, rests solely with the emotional and energetic state of the collective consciousness through this transitional period. This is why I believe that it is so important to help people understand reality, to help people understand the changes that are occurring. And I believe that it is also very important that people be aware of what these changes may mean in relation to themselves and to their connection with reality. I believe that gaining a true understanding of reality is a crucial step, folks. I think it is a crucial step and a significant milestone in the elimination of fear. I think that that's really the only way fear can be eliminated from the human psyche, is by understanding reality. Actually, a couple of days ago I was invited to come and speak with some people in a Pal Talk chat room. The room was called the Wake Up Project. And the talk turned to unconditional love, and someone in the room commented that it is impossible for a person to be in a state of unconditional love. Now, I very much disagree with that statement, because I believe that obtaining a state of unconditional love is possible for everybody. And I believe that what prevents people from obtaining this state, it very much depends on what their perception and understanding of love actually is. Many people, I've found anyway, that many people, when they think of love, they think of what I tend to refer to as the television version of love. They tend to anthropomorphize it. They tend to give it human qualities. They think of love and they think of the feeling they feel for their partner or their child, the love they have for a pet or an activity, or for some it may be a type of food or a particular piece of music, their best friend or their brother or sister. They think of this type of love. Now, all of these things, all of these feelings are good expressions of love. But what are they all? At a deeper level, what are all of these feelings and expressions when one looks at the core essence of each expression? In fact, what you find is that all of them are slightly different expressions of the same energetic state. So when you start to see things from this perspective, you begin to understand that what love actually is at its core essence is an energetic state. That warm, fuzzy feeling, that lightheadedness and leaping of the heart, that state of bliss and ecstasy. At its root essence, what it is energy. That's all it really is. This is one polarity of the energy that makes up all reality. The energy has two polarities that I often refer to as love and fear. Now, when I say the other polarity is fear, it doesn't necessarily mean that the person who is in that energetic state is in a state of fear. He may well be in a state of ecstasy from the fear that he's creating in others. This is the thing. It isn't the fact that people live their lives in a state of fear. It's the fact that they induce fear into others so they can harvest that energy. And it's like an ecstasy for them. It's like a pure dark bliss. You know, the feeling that a person gets from their victim, a rapist or wife beater or a child killer. Some of these people that you would consider totally dreadful. I try to look at things on a deeper level. Instead of judging the person, I try to understand the energy that they are in to commit that heinous act. And what you begin to see is that it's a bliss, it's an ecstasy, it's the same as what you feel when you're immersed in love. Only it's the opposite side of the spectrum. And they are harvesting this energy from their victims by inducing a state of unparalleled fear and terror in their victims. They get to harvest that energy and take it into themselves. And it's like a drug to these people. See, that's how it works, folks. It's all about energy exchanges. And it is two different polarities of energy. And the ecstasy that a rapist feels is the polar opposite of the ecstasy that a lover feels. This is the thing. It's two different types of energy. And if you can look at things this way, it gives you an understanding of what black magic and things really are. All of these ritual events that the elite carry out, all of these bizarre practices that they get up to, the way to really understand what these rituals are all about is to look at them all on an energetic level. Now, when you can gain an understanding of what reality is, when you can really see that everything that exists is simply pure energy, and you begin to perceive that energy as being the two polarities of love and fear, if you can totally eliminate fear from your life, and really, what's to fear, folks? What's to fear about life? What, death? Well, when you die, you become infinite consciousness. You return to the source. Gee, how terrible. There's nothing to fear in death, folks. Death is simply a transition. And death is what is used to keep people in a state of fear. Everything's death. I mean, you can't pay the rent. You're in fear. Why? Because you might be kicked out and you might have to live in the cold and you'll die. At a root level, it always comes back to death, doesn't it? You know, you're scared of being arrested and going to jail because you might get hurt in jail and die. You know, you're scared of driving somewhere because you might have a car accident and die. Whatever, it always comes back to death, doesn't it? This is what the ultimate fear is, the fear of death, the fear of the unknown. But when you gain an understanding of what reality is, well, what's to fear? There's nothing to fear. So if you can eliminate fear from your life, understanding that fear is one polarity of the energy, then you're in a state of love, aren't you? That's what unconditional love is the removal of all fear from your life and your ability to be able to meet these polarized fear energies head on without any personal fear. To be able to embrace the shadow and heal the shadow. And not just the shadow in yourself, but the shadow that exists all around you. Because there are many people that are in the shadow. There's a lot of the New Age movement that will refuse to acknowledge any negative stuff around them. If they see someone hurting someone else, they won't say anything about it. They'll simply say these two people are experiencing karma together and they should not interfere, because if they interfere, they are doing so because they haven't addressed a wound within themselves, and they are in duality and they're in judgment and all this sort of rubbish, you know. In reality, the reason that they don't address this polarized activity that's going on is because they are in fear of the emotion that is raised inside them. They can't face the shadow. If I see polarized activity, I can address it. If I see a man beating up a child, I can go and stop that happening because of the empathy I have for the child. But I don't judge or hate the man. I feel more sorry for the man, because what would put someone in that state of polarized energy, that state of energy harvesting, the state where they would have to commit that act against another person? They need healing. They don't need hurting. They need healing. These people need love. These people absolutely need love. And that's a hard thing for a lot of people to get their head around. But that's the way I look at things, folks. And to me, that's what unconditional love is. Unconditional love is the absence of fear. And we'll talk a little bit more about this anyway after the break. I think it's time for a break, folks. So we'll take a break here and we can come back and continue this conversation in a few moments. Welcome back, folks. Now, before the break, we were talking about unconditional love. I was saying that unconditional love is an absence of a state of fear within your life. Now, it's also acting in empathy. I mean, before the break I was talking about, as an example, a man beating up a child, and how I would help the child out of empathy for the child, not out of hate or anger at the perpetrator. I do it because it needs to be done. It's necessary to do this in order to change the situation that I'm witnessing. See, empathy is the key, folks. Empathy is the key to the whole thing, you know. If you can really understand what reality is, then you can lose all fear of death. You see that most situations between people are simply energy exchanges, and you can diffuse most of these situations if you approach them in the right way. And of course, saying you need to lose all fear, I'm not saying you're going to walk up to some biker who's monstering people and pick a fight with him or anything like that. I'm not saying that you're going to start abusing police officers because you're not in a state of fear. I mean, losing fear doesn't mean losing common sense. You don't want to aggravate situations, but you need to simply see all situations as energy exchanges and be in a state of personal empowerment and be in your energy and deal with these situations on the proper level, from the proper energetic state. You'll find that if you can do this and you're not fearful of any situation, you realize it's an energy exchange. And so if you look at things from this perspective, you can simply deal with them on an energetic level, and it does make a huge difference to your life. Well, it has to mine anyway. So I began this little section of this talk by discussing how the Earth is changing, and I suppose it may seem like I've gotten a little off track with all this today, folks, but I feel that it's very important that people do gain an understanding of energy and become aware of what energetic state they are centered in. I believe having an understanding of energy may well provide humankind with the means of making it through this period of change we are entering into. This is also why I believe it is very important for us to quickly address this monetary system, because I believe that freeing people from the stress, from the emotional and financial hardship that this system creates would be of huge benefit to humankind on an energetic level through this transitional period. If people don't have to worry about money, don't have to worry about all this artificial stress that's induced into our lives, I think it could make a huge difference. Because it is a period of change, folks. And people may ask, well, what is this change that people keep talking about anyway? What are we talking about? Are we talking about the end of the world, or what are we talking about? What signs do we actually have that suggest we are even in such a time of change? Well, there are certain things that are going on in the solar system, certain things the sun is doing. There's just all the turmoil we're having here on Earth, which is being presented to us by the powers that be as climate change. And also, from an ancient perspective, we have in our possession an abundant amount of information available to us in the form of ancient mythologies, ancient legends, ancient texts. And these mythologies and histories have been left for us by a myriad of cultures, folks. Almost every ancient culture left us something that suggests that we should pay special attention to this particular time that we are in right now. And it soon becomes very apparent to anyone who has investigated these things that the ancient cultures who wrote these stories and legends that they left behind for us, they all viewed the current time in history as a time period of particular interest. There really are a large number of these legends and so-called prophecies that exist, folks, from the Mayan calendar through to the Indian text, the Vedas, to the prophecies of the Hopi, people like Nostradamus, Mother Shipton, St. Malachi. Even the pyramid timeline suggests that that now is a time of great interest, a time of change. Now, there has also been a huge amount of researchers who have written all types of different views on what these changes may be. And recently there has also been a huge surge in public interest in these topics as well. And this is quite understandable, as many people view these tales as prophecies of end times. And man has always had a strange fascination with tales of doomsday. And what exactly is doomsday anyway, folks? I mean, are we talking about the end of the world here, or are we simply talking about the end of the world as we know it and a period of change, a new beginning rather than an end? That's the thing. I mean, most people look at stuff like this and they think of the end. Oh no, the end of everything. But what endings provide is new beginnings. And a new beginning may well be just what humankind needs. And you see, that's the way I look at things like the Mayan calendar as well, folks. I see the Mayan calendar as a new beginning. And the date of December 21st, 2012, this isn't a date where the world ends. It's the date where the new world begins. And the old world will have had to have ended before that date in order for the new beginning to start on that date. That's the thing, you know. Any changes we're going to have, any earth changes we're going to have, if indeed we are going to have earth changes at all, I believe will probably come before that date. There is speculation that these changes could appear any time from 2008 to 2015. So that puts us squarely in the period now where things could happen any day, but I honestly don't see any of these things as something to fear. But there are a lot of signs, and it seems very significant that the monetary system has also been designed to collapse just prior to this date of 2012. It'd be very doubtful if the money system lasts any longer than 2010, folks. It really will. All the signs of imminent monetary collapse are there. And so it's extremely important for people to realise that there is no value to this stuff anyway. It only has the value that we give it. When the money system crashes, we don't need to go into panic mode. we simply need to start supporting each other. And this is why I've been suggesting to people that they plant gardens and things like that. I've been suggesting this for the last 18 months, folks, that you all set yourself up to be able to support your family and maybe help people in your local community as well. And you can do this on a communal level, folks. Just get something to fall back on. Don't allow yourself to remain completely dependent upon the system, because I don't believe this system is going to last. I really don't see how it can. But there are lots of things going on that suggest these times of change are coming. And, you know, we've got all of these financial and economic woes. We've got all of these wars building up. We've got the whole police state global union that they're trying to bring in. We've got a severe solar maximum on the way from the sun. And the sun has actually quietened right down at the moment. The sun usually lets out coronal ejections all the time. But since about the beginning of 2009, it's calmed right down. It's still pulsing, the way I was talking about a few shows ago when I said that the sun is pulsing like a heart at the moment, and it's having these huge energy releases. But these are kind of local releases. These aren't coronal ejections the way the sun normally does. The sun's quietened right down with its coronal ejections while it's going through this pulsing period. It's very significant, folks, that this is happening, and it may well be storing things up for a mass ejection sometime soon. Now, anybody who's watched my films, especially The Awakening, knows that I talk about an evolution of consciousness that is due to occur at this time in history. I believe this evolution in consciousness is due to occur simply because of things that are going on, simply because of things like the Fibonacci sequence, the rise in the Schumann cavity resonance. Some people say that the rise in the cavity resonance is a myth. I personally believe that it is a fact. And I believe a lot of the evolution that is occurring to the consciousness of humankind will be triggered by our sun. Carl Sagan also believed that solar radiation had a lot to do with the evolution of human consciousness. I had someone actually write, I think it was on my Facebook page the other day, I had a lady write that perhaps the chemtrails, the barium in the chemtrails, the aluminium and the stuff that they're putting in the chemtrails is shielding humankind from a lot of the solar radiation, and may well be being done in order to inhibit this conscious evolution that is occurring, and to prevent mankind from being too exposed to this evolutionary solar radiation that is coming from the sun. There's a very good possibility of this, folks. When you add all the numbers together, you start connecting the dots, you see how the magnetosphere is breaking down, which is allowing more solar radiation to come in from the sun. You see how the sun has been doing all of these weird things, and now it's started pulsing, and it's calmed right down, as if it's preparing for a major outburst. It's like it's saving up all its energy for one big mass ejection. And this could well be the case, folks, and this could have a very significant effect upon the consciousness of humankind. So all of these things need considering. We've got things like the Norway spiral that appeared in, what was it, November last year, I believe. These things have also appeared over China. We've had very strange radar anomalies showing up in Australia, all over Australia. So there are some very strange things going on. There's a lot of reference to these spirals in the sky as well, in a lot of ancient rock carvings and petroglyphs and cave paintings and things like that. There's a lot of evidence to suggest that these spirals are actually seen in the sky before periods of change. And that's something also that needs looking at. So there are all sorts of things that suggest that something very unusual is happening or is about to happen on planet Earth. Personally, I think we are in for a hell of a ride, folks, and I think it actually already is a hell of a ride. We're already starting on this ride now. And I believe that one of the most important things we can do through all of this period is to maintain our energetic state, to not move into a state of fear, to understand what reality is, and realize that this is just a ride. And the energetic state of the collective consciousness is what will determine the outcome of this ride. So it's good to keep positive. And we don't need everybody on Earth to suddenly become positive in order to create a positive reality. We really only need a small amount of people, because the energy of love is so much more powerful than the energy of fear. So it doesn't matter if we've got millions of people that are locked in fear, as long as we have that core essence who are in an energetic state of love. This is all it needs to bring about the change. Love is so much more powerful than fear. So it's important to view any changes that are coming as simply a period of transition, because that's all it is. Because you're infinite consciousness, I'm infinite consciousness, we are all infinite consciousness, and ultimately it doesn't matter what change the world makes, what change consciousness makes. What matters is our energetic state through the transition. So this is why it's good to address the money supply, folks. The money supply and the current totally corrupt monetary system is one of the main tools that is used to keep consciousness down, to keep people in a state of stress. Understanding the legal system is also a great thing to do. This is exactly why I wish to make the short film that I mentioned earlier on, that I'm planning to make, to help people understand the Australian Constitution. This helps for my country anyway. Unfortunately, I can't make a film on the finer points of the American legal system because I'm simply not familiar enough with it, folks. I don't live in America, so I can't really make too much of an analysis on the American legal system. However, I do have a reasonable understanding of constitutional law in my own country, and so I can bring that to the people anyway. And understanding this legal system, and understanding the legal system in your own country, and understanding the rights that you have, is a very empowering thing for people to do. It really does give you a whole new outlook to life. It changes your perspective once you realize the power that you actually have. And you'll find that this power really does exist in a lot of countries. It does exist if you start understanding the final points of your legal system. So that's why I want to bring that to people anyway. I just think it'll help. I think all of these things help, folks. I think the more people who become empowered and the more positive the human consciousness gets in general, the more hope we have through this change, and the more possibility we have of manifesting a good reality through this change. And all of those people who sit there and believe that they are all going to ascend to fifth dimension if they stay in this new age mentality, I would suggest that these people begin to understand that there is truly only one self, and they are not going to ascend to fifth dimension by ignoring the plight of those around them. Until people start embracing a state of empathy and start acting in empathy, things aren't going to change. Intention is very good, but intention without action is meaningless. There are too many people that forget that, and there are too many people who are focusing on individual improvement rather than on improving the self that we're all part of. Remember that by ignoring problems, by ignoring criminal activity that's being carried out around you, by ignoring the plight of others, you are giving these problems your silent approval. You are approving of this polarized activity to be carried out in your world by the lack of attention that you're paying to this activity. Those who silently allow a problem to be perpetuated are truly as guilty as those who are actually creating the problem. And that's something that a lot of people have a very hard time dealing with. It's something that a lot of people have a very hard time facing about themselves. And it is the big problem that exists within the New Age movement. This creates a kind of unconsciousness among these people. They are too intent on focusing on their individual self and improving their own self, but they ignore the plight of those around them. And this is why the world is in the state that it's in, because of this type of attitude. That may be rather uncomfortable for some people to face, but that's just the way it is. There is too much of this misconception that you give a problem power by acknowledging the problem exists. You give polarized activity energy by acknowledging that activity. That's not true. You might give it energy by fighting against it. And this is why non-compliance is so important. When you see a problem, you don't fight against it. You stop complying with it, folks. It's what I was saying earlier about the man beating up the child. I'll protect the child. I won't comply with the violence. I won't passively allow that type of activity to occur. But I don't wish to fight the perpetrator. I don't hate the perpetrator. I don't judge the perpetrator. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to allow him to continue to perpetrate the act that he's doing. But if I don't speak out about it, then I'm agreeing with it. I'm allowing it to occur. I'm agreeing that that's okay in my world. It's okay for people to do that to other people. But I don't think it's okay, so I can't sit idly by and let it happen. But I think that the person who's doing it is only doing it because of their perception of what reality is, and that perception is based on the society that raised them. It's based on the life that they've had. It's based on their understanding of what reality is, and the understanding that most people have of reality is simply not their fault. People might say, well look, the information's out there for anybody who wants to go and research it, and that's very true, but a lot of people simply don't have time to go and research these things because they are kept in this never-ending situation where they're on the treadmill. They've got to run, they've got to make money to pay the bills, they've got all of this stuff going on in this life in the fast lane type of reality that people tend to be in the modern world, which is completely contrived and completely unnecessary. If people would step back from these type of perceptions of reality and simply stop and look at things from the outside for a little while, I'm sure they would find that reality is not anything like what they perceived it to be when they were in there on the treadmill and running the little rat race that society keeps us involved in. It's people's stress over money and people's dependence upon money and the perpetual state of shortage that people are kept in that prevents people from ever being able to do this, from ever being able to step back and truly look at things and truly start to see the world in a different light. So you can't blame these people, folks. You can't blame the people you see doing these bad things. You've got to understand what it is that has brought them to that point. And let's face it, folks, the human consciousness has been so repressed. It's had so much creativity and so much personal freedom taken from it that a lot of people are simply ready to explode. People turn to alcohol, people turn to drugs, people turn to violence, they turn to whatever they can to try to find some solace and try to find some reason for their existence, because they are kept in this false reality, this false paradigm where they have this life that is absolute stress right from the word go. As soon as you start going to school, you start attracting stress into your life. Your life becomes stressful as soon as you enter the education system, and it stays stressful until you die. This is the world that has been created for us due to this monetary system. So it's very important that we deal with the monetary system. All that stress will then get removed from the human psyche, and we will be in a much better position to create the world we would like to see through this period of transition that we're going through at the moment. Well, that's about it for the show today, folks. I know I've probably babbled a lot again on this show. I tend to do that sometimes. I do intend to make this film on the Australian Constitution, so that will be something for Australian listeners to look forward to as well. I may have to have a bit of a break from the radio shows soon. I've got so much going on in my life that I'm seriously wondering whether I should keep doing the radio shows. So I'll just have to see what eventuates with all of that. I do enjoy talking to you every week, but it does detract a lot of my energy from filmmaking or from ever getting my second book finished, and a lot of the things that I would like to be doing. So I'll just have to do some meditation on that and do some quiet thinking and pondering and figure out whatever solution is going to work best. I'm not saying that I'm leaving or anything like that. I'm not saying that I'm not going to be doing any more shows. I'm not saying anything like that. I'm just sort of thinking that maybe I might need to have a bit of time off soon, but I'll just play it by ear and I'll see where that leads me, folks. But in the meantime, it has been a pleasure talking to you again. It is always a pleasure to talk to you here on the show. Thank you very much for continuing to visit thecrowhouse.com. Thank you to those people who donated to help me get DVDs out at the Blues Festival this year. I did manage to get quite a large number of DVDs handed out to people at the gate, and so that was a bonus. I couldn't have done that without the donations that people sent me. Any donations that are ever sent to the Crow House, folks, always get used in order to keep the information flowing. I give out a great number of DVDs every day. I go uptown, but I have a bag of them with me and I give them out to lots of people. And all of the money that I do get donated, I do very much recycle back into spreading the information and spreading the word to others. Thank you again for listening to the show. Thank you for the continued support that you've shown me. I'll look forward to speaking to you again next week. Bye for now, my friends. In Lakesh.